Put on your hard hat and buckle up that tool belt. It's time for some heavy-duty conversation about all things Tampa Bay. Welcome to Tommy's Toolbox, the podcast, Season 2. I'm Tommy Whitehead, the CEO and founder of Tomco Solutions, where we're not just construction and financial experts, but passionate advocates for our thriving community here in Tampa, Florida. As a construction pro and proud resident of Tampa Bay, I'm excited to shine a spotlight on our region. Whether you're a longtime resident or considering a move to Tampa Bay, get ready to uncover some hidden gems and fascinating insights about our beloved hometown. Sitting with me today at the drafting table is Aakash Patel, founder and president of Elevate Inc., a strategic business consulting firm that provides public relations, community relations, targeted networking, and social media services to over 300 companies. Alongside his business, Aakash is passionate about the Tampa Bay community. He was even appointed a member of the Board of Trustees at Hillsborough Community College by Governor DeSantis himself in 2021. Listen in as we talk about the power of connection and relationships in the business world, especially in the Tampa Bay area. Welcome, Aakash. How are you doing today?
Good, Tommy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So for those of you that don't know, Aakash and I are friends. We work together on certain things, and we're both members of the Tampa Club, so it was fun to
both on the board.
Both on the board of the Tampa Club. And so it's fun to actually have you here because Aakash is a power connector in our community. So, Aakash, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from originally?
Well, thanks again for having me. I'm from New Jersey originally. I grew up there, and my parents divorced when I was young. My dad relocated to Tampa, and so I came here for high school, went away to college, and came back.
It's amazing. Now, I've heard of a lot of people moving here from New Jersey. The Northeast in general, like it's just a funnel for Florida. You just did a little earlier than all the people recently.
Yeah, I think New York, New Jersey, the whole Northeast corridor during the pandemic, they all fled to Florida, and we're seeing the traffic. It's good for Tampa.
We are seeing the traffic. I wish we wouldn't see the potholes, though. What decided to bring you back after college? Was it family? Was it opportunity? What really drew you to say, hey, I'm done with school. I want to be back in Tampa Bay?
Yeah, so my dad was still here. I had friends here, but they weren't very passionate about Tampa. So I figured I'll work here for a couple years and then rent and then figure out where I want to live. And because I was young and really not sure what I was going to do with my career. My degree was in political science and English literature from Florida State. So my natural thought was I'd be a journalist. And so I started that and then realized probably better to do more of the PR route. So I worked for a big agency in downtown Tampa. So that brought me back. And then I kind of just morphed into, I rather work for a client of mine. So I went in-house to work for a client, and then the recession hit. The 2009 recession kind of wiped out a lot of people's marketing efforts. And so I went to work for a hotel, the Westin Hotel over in Rocky Point, and was doing marketing, business development, and it was just a fun experience, a creative experience.
That's awesome. And I didn't know we both shared a hospitality background. Before construction, I was director of finance and accounting at multiple hospitality operations.
Oh, great.
So, and it's kind of the same thing in 2009. The recession hit, the oil spill hit shortly after that.
Yep.
And all of a sudden the hospitality industry just cuts jobs here left and right here in Florida. And so that really pushed me into a different career path.
And specifically for the hotel I was working at, it was a convention hotel, but there was no conventions. Mm-hmm. So I was training these sales reps that were supposed to call on visitors to think locally, network locally, use social media. And so it was all new. Back then, the hospitality industry wasn't leveraging social media.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So it's kind of cool to see another professional that drastically changed his career based on economic conditions.
I mean, when the crisis hits, you got to pivot, right? That's the key word.
You got to pay your rent. So you have a very impressive resume. Can you tell us a little bit more about your past work experience, even before Elevate? We just talked about the Westin, and after you left the Westin, what pole vaulted you?
So I have a friend. He's incredibly smart and in the entrepreneurial space. And he said to Aakash, why don't you come work for me? So at the time, his then girlfriend, now wife, was going into school in Boston. And so he's like, I got to be in Boston, but my business is here. So I can't be in two places at once. Why don't you work remotely? So in 2010, I was working remotely. And why don't you work for me and kind of do business development for my company? I was like, what does that mean? Because I didn't, when you go to college, you know what business development means, But basically, it's kind of just networking and sales and meeting good people. And then, of course, when your boss is in town, you kind of set up these appointments. And so it was a lot of fun. This company was sold in 2011. The company was called Chamber.com. And when it was sold, I was like, man, Tampa's going to be something someday. I want to get in on this from the ground floor. And being flexible, I was like, I'm going to start a business. I don't know how, but I'm going to start it. So I interviewed 50 different CEOs at that time. I mean, just coffees and lunches, kind of what you and I do every day, and said, how do I start a business that makes people want to stay here, because there are people that were coming back, but then they were going away, right? So I want people to stay here. And then I basically kind of came up with a model of Elevate just by asking a lot of friends, and launched it February 1, 2012.
And that must have been pretty scary. I mean, you're relatively new in your career. You've always worked for somebody else.
Yeah.
And now you're like, holy crap, if I don't bring in a client with my business development skills that we didn't get in college, then I don't have rent, I don't have food. So tell me a little bit about your thought process with that. I mean, entrepreneurs starting up, they always have the passion, but there's a reality to that of not making your payroll or not making your rent. That's kind of scary.
And that actually kind of happened. So I started February 1, 2012. I had 3 clients my first month. March of 2012, I had 2 clients. April of 2012, I had 1 client. And I was like, man, if this continues, I can't pay rent, right? Mm-hmm. So basically, I thought about what's coming up to Tampa. And right now, I don't know if you remember, but right then, August of 2012, the Republican convention was coming here. Mm-hmm. So I was like, man, there's a lot of events. What if I sign companies to work with me through the convention and guarantee them event tickets? So I said, okay, let's try it. And in May of 2012, we went to 8 clients. And today we have 32.
That's incredible. So you just looked on the horizon, you saw something coming, and you saw a pending demand that nobody even knew there was a demand yet. And you said, hey, I'm gonna create a solution for this.
Yeah, people like going to events, but what they like better, being handheld. Mm-hmm. So I knew that if they could get their own tickets at the convention, it was pretty public. But if I get them the VIP treatment, the walking around the room, taking pictures with whoever, they wanted that VIP experience. And it's just a matter of positioning on that they're not going to get anywhere else.
That's incredible. And I've hosted many networking events, and one of the things I get sometimes is people saying, I want to come to the event, I want to network, but I'm afraid to meet anybody, which is kind of weird. It's counterintuitive to a networking event. So what you do is you create an atmosphere where it's like, hey, get it? You don't know anybody, but come with me, and you're going to be my +1, my +5, and we're going to start introducing you to people.
And you hold themselves accountable. So before we go there, I said, okay, what's the goal? What's comfortable for you? You want to shake 5 new hands, you want to shake 10 hands, right? And they say, okay, 5. All right, so now at the end of the 2 hours, come back with me with 5 business cards or 5 names and see what happens, right? Because if they try for 5 and they get 3, but they were 3 quality, that's cool too. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of like you need an accountability buddy. You remember you use a buddy system? That's what we kind of created, and people love that, especially when they're new in their careers.
A little bit like a personal trainer for your networking.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool. So what is your favorite part about living and working here in the Tampa Bay area?
Every day is different. I mean, my day today, I started listening to a panel for the chamber. Then I met with a restaurant owner and a great entrepreneur. Then I had lunch with our tax collector. And now I'm here with you. And later today, I'm meeting with a news anchor. So like every day you're meeting different people. But along the way, I saw the mayor today. I talked to her about a ribbon cutting she's doing. I mean, the town is big, but it's also small. And no matter what happens in a given day, you're going to run into and reconnect with people. And that's really what I get to do. I get to, people that I like, I get to reconnect with them, and the people I really like, I'll get to meet my clients. And the clients love that experience because the warm introduction is always better than the cold.
Yeah, I agree. The quick text message introduction, you always hear that. Just introduce me with a 3-day text. That doesn't go anywhere. You have to give a handshake. You have to tell something about it, tell a little story, display that you know something about this person. Hey, Aakash, this is the director of so-and-so, and this is what they do, and I think they might be a great connection for you, to give them a little extra. And I think we've forgotten that in our networking, or maybe we never knew it because you didn't take a networking college course, did you?
No,
I didn't get
I wish they had it.
I wish they did too. They need to start in middle school and high school with this stuff. So that's impressive what you do. So tell me, Aakash, what drives you? Like, what's your favorite part of the day and gets you out of the bed in the morning?
I think it's the fact that every day I get to meet new people and share my insights, and then they get to tell me what we can do and work together. So my model, so when I started this, what are the 3 things we want to teach companies? We want them to learn about Tampa Bay, right? We want them to connect with people. That's the one-on-one meetings. And we want them to grow their brand. So every day I wake up and say, what am I going to do? So number 1, I got to be bold, I got to be brave, and I got to be myself. So I have a client that yesterday asked me for feedback, and I said, you know what? Honestly, I've got a lot of clients, you're never on time. And that could be a bad thing to tell your client because they could fire me. Because it could, I'm like, but that's myself. Like if someone's asking me for feedback, I got to be honest. There's someone that said, You got to be direct. And so I've taken this tool of when I wake up, I kind of set the tone for the day of what I want to do and what messages I want to get across. And I try to touch base with everyone I have to touch base with.
That's awesome. And so you're clearly an extrovert. I mean, that's your business. You have to be comfortable crossing a room and introducing yourself to a stranger. Were you always that way? Did you always have that extroverted nature, or did you grow into it?
When I was in high school, I didn't know anyone because I moved here for high school, and I think I kind of had to fit in. And, when you go to high school, there are people from all different middle schools. Mm-hmm. If you're from this town, I moved states for high school, so I didn't know anybody. Mm-hmm. So I applied to be the class treasurer for the freshman class, and I turned the application in too late. And that week, you want to talk about hurricanes, a hurricane hit. Mm-hmm. So they extend the application, and no one ran against me. And so I kind of got in student government in ninth grade at Sickles High School in Citrus Park, go Griffins. And basically that kind of forced me out of my shell, because when you're in student government, I ended up becoming student body vice president and ran a bunch of clubs. And so that led to me in college being on the debate team, and that really took me out of the shell. And I try to practice that every day now when we're at the Tampa Club or other events. It's like, it's not easy to talk to people you don't know, because you can get rejected and you can get, like, hey, leave me alone, I'm having lunch. But this is the thing to do. We're a friendly community. What I hear from clients and business people, and you probably hear the same thing, that we are a very open community.
Our community, we really have a sense of community here. I hear of all these people moving from New Jersey, from New York, from other places, and they constantly say, wow, Tampa's like very welcoming. It's very inviting. You can cross the room and say hello to somebody. And yeah, every once in a while you're going to get that rejection, but if I shut down every time I got a rejection, if you shut down every time you got a rejection, we wouldn't be doing what we did today. So it's okay. Just move on to the next person. Introduce yourself and say hello.
It's a numbers game. And I'll tell you this, the other thing we talked about before is most people in this town do these leadership programs. Mm-hmm. When I got here, I wanted to get involved. At 23, I applied to Leadership Tampa, didn't get in. 25, I applied to Leadership Tampa, didn't get in. 27, I finally got in. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people that after they don't get in a couple times, they just give up. I'm like, we're in this to win it, so we got to keep trying.
Keep your name on the top of that list, because they start noticing you. They're like, what's this Aakash guy? And this is the third time. Maybe we really do need to look at him if he's that determined.
Yeah.
And that makes a difference. That's great. On this podcast, we love to talk about how Tampa is rapidly growing. We've seen the stuff going on in Ybor right now that they just announced a few weeks ago. Daryl Shaw has got some impressive things going on. Jeff Vinnick's already done impressive things. We've even had people like Bill Gates get involved through the Vinnick Foundation. I'm sure there's plenty of other big names out there that don't even declare how involved they are in Tampa. So how have you seen growth affect your clients?
Oh, I think it's they're now find opportunities to get involved. So, for instance, we represent City Furniture, Andrew, mm-hmm. and we know they need a location in downtown. And so their next location, our now engineering firm is going to work with them. So we match-made two different people because there's growth. There's City Furniture is based in Miami. They already have a Plant City location. They already have a Clearwater location. Now they want to be in downtown Tampa because they want to be around Water Street, Gasworks, right? That's what we're seeing is companies are moving here to be around what we call the new hip city.
That's exactly what I've seen. So I grew up in Florida. I'm a native Floridian. So for for like 17 years, I lived in Polk County, but just one county over, and the rest of my life for more than 20 years.
We call that Imperial Polk County. It's very high end over there.
Not the area I grew up in, but yes, there is some very, very high end area of Polk County. It's not disclosed, but it's there. So I've seen the growth, and we're constantly on the top 10 list of places to move.
Oh, Lakeland is going to be. They say Lakeland's a new Tampa.
Yeah, I've seen that, and growing up in Lakeland and then visiting it after, and I'm like, wow, where was this city when I was growing up? So that's incredible that your clients are seeing that, and it's really attracting new talent too, right? It's not just the businesses are coming; the talent is following them.
Well, you're creating talent. If you look at Lakeland, Florida Poly is not far, and Florida Southern, they've got a new president. They're both campuses have new presidents. Who would have thought on the way to Disney World? Now you have a big two universities, right? One's private, one's public, but two big ones. And here in Tampa Bay, we have University of Tampa has a new president. USF is president's relatively new, but been in the community for a long time. I'm on the board of HCC, Hillsborough Community College, and our community college enrollment's up. And our president's been there 13 years, and we have 5 campuses throughout the county, and enrollment's up in all 5 campuses. So our county is big. We got 1.5 million people in Hillsborough County, but the talent is getting better because companies are coming here. So We've got a relationship with TICO now at HCC. They need more linemen. They come to HCC. They said, we need more linemen. We create a program, and now more linemen are there, right? So we have that relationship with our community because universities and community colleges have to be part of the business community. And the businesses are like, well, we're not going to stay here if we don't get the right talent.
That's fascinating that you would say that, because in the past, especially when we went to school, colleges didn't really adapt too much. It was kind of like, here's our programs, take it or leave it. And now you were just very clear. And alignment is like a trade. It's like a construction trade, right? Of course, yeah. And I advocate for that. And we've talked about starting a charter school, and I've got a lot of things in the plans that my company's doing. But the fact that the schools are now identifying the needs so quickly and adapting is fascinating. I've never seen that before, like I've seen it just in the last 5 years, in the last 10 years. Well,
it's a workforce thing. They're now getting high wage jobs. Mm-hmm. It doesn't cost them much to do it. It's very low time, and their whole life is going to change. And for the companies, good benefits, good pay, and they're going to stay here forever. They're going to work there forever.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've even seen the high schools do that. Tampa Bay Tech has a welding program. Mm-hmm. Some of those kids, talking 18-year-old kids, graduate the welding program and can make six figures. Oh, yeah. Can you imagine what you could do with six figures at 18?
Well, our youngest graduated, because there's certain schools in Hillsborough County that do dual enrollment. Mm-hmm. Our youngest graduation for HCC this year was 14.
That makes you a little sick, doesn't it? And proud.
And our oldest was 79.
Wow.
So people are realizing the value of education at all sorts of ages. And they know they don't need to remember we were told to go to a 4-year school because we thought that's what we're supposed to do. I got 2 degrees. I guess I'm using them, but and I love Florida State because the experiences I had outside of the classroom is what I got to where I was, the networking I did there. But I don't know if people today, everyone is not always going to go to a 4-year school. They can go to a community college and do the same thing.
Yeah, and
or a trade school, to your point.
And in our generation, because we're the same age, our generation was told, don't get your hands dirty, go to college, you're going to do this, you're going to do this.
Right.
And how many other political science degrees do you know that are really utilizing the degrees? Probably not tons.
A lot of them go to law school, and that's what I thought I did want to do, but then I was like, there's a lot of lawyers, and I'm not passionate about it, So I didn't want to be a lawyer. I like lawyers. I have clients that are lawyers, I have friends that are lawyers, but if I'm not passionate about it, I don't want to make that my career.
Yeah, and I always say this, when a plumber can charge the same hourly rate as an attorney without the college debt, that's pretty impressive. So the trades are not to be looked down on anymore. They're, we're sitting in a building, we're sitting in a studio that was built by individuals that maybe went to school, maybe didn't, but we need that trade infrastructure. And I'm glad to see that HCC is recognizing that as well and really pushing that. And they're doing it with linesmen. I know they have other programs as well.
HVAC, auto mechanics, you mentioned plumbing. These are trades that even in the medical space, if you don't want to be a doctor, you don't want to be a nurse, you can be a tech, a radiation on tech. Or a PA, or those degrees now are more common than not.
Yeah, and I love to see that our society has adopted our failures of being just told, oh, go to school, you'll figure it out after that, and said, no, let's target your career earlier. Let's think about it. Let's get more specific on your career path. Let's talk about the radiation oncologists, which are needed desperately.
Of course.
Right? With so many people moving and so many people retiring in our state, we don't have enough medical professionals. And I think one of your clients, was the Dean of College of Nursing was talking about that once.
Usha,
Usha is great. And she was talking about that society is aging faster than we have people to replace. And especially here in Florida, and we don't have enough nurses, let alone doctors and specialists.
Yeah, the nursing shortage, you read about it all the time. It's going to be soon. Doctor, the doctor shortage. It's everything. We need to create certain trades and keep going.
That's great. So here in Tampa, we've seen all the new development around. Is there anything here in Tampa that is particularly exciting to you, development-wise? Is there there's a one development or one program or something specifically that's just like, wow, this is impressive?
I think downtown Tampa specifically, there was an announcement recently that they're going to do another kind of private high-end club in one of the downtown buildings. It might be 501 Kennedy. I don't remember the street, but you've got developers wanting to invest in downtown. I went to the ribbon cutting for One Tampa, the new high-rises, right? So, and Pendry, as you know, is being built now. So Water Street's awesome, as you know. That's like its own corner of coolness, right? So I think the fact that, this is a joke that former Mayor Bob Buckland used to say, 15 years ago, there were 600 people that lived in downtown, and half of them lived in the prison. Right?
Yeah.
So now you've got people paying $4,000 or $5,000 a month to live in Water Street. Like, how does that happen? Well, it created a community of cool vibes, cool restaurants, coffee shops. Like we said, there's a medical school there, so there's residents, of course, from the USF. The pharmacy school's there. You have all sorts of businesses like ReliaQuest opening office space in downtown. You've got the arena. So my point is I think I'm excited about what's going to happen to the part of downtown that's not developed, and what you're going to see is it's going to be cool.
And that was just in 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that 20 years it seems like a long time, but for a development of a city this size, that's nothing. That's nothing. And to your point, I lived here and I would come downtown sometimes on the weekend. It'd be a ghost town.
Yep.
Nothing was here. 5 o'clock on Friday, bam, everybody's gone. That was it. And now sometimes the traffic's worse on the weekends than it is on the weekdays.
Oh, if it's a hockey game or in something at the Straz, I mean, you're going to be, and there's an event at the Marriott. There's always a charity event at the Marriott downtown or something. You have 2 hours.
You have people at Jackson's and the Yachts. You have people at Curtis Hickson. I mean, they have something going on like every weekend at Curtis Hickson Park, which is incredible.
It's awesome.
Most of the time it's free. I really love to look at the growth here and see where we're going to be at in the next 20 years.
The other thing is, if you think about, your buddy, the aquarium, the aquarium, so back in the day, if you're doing a capital campaign to raise money to grow, it's like 1 or 2 organizations. Right now, we've got a capital campaign for the aquarium, for the Museum of Art, which you talked about from your past podcast, to the Straz Center is doing a capital campaign. University of Tampa is doing a capital campaign, right? The hospital, Tampa General, they're doing capital campaigns. St. Joseph's Baker, they're doing capital. Like, everyone is raising money because they're anticipating more growth. That's exciting.
What's more exciting is they're successful in getting that capital.
Yep.
It's not just some small town that's hoping and wishing and trying. No, you have all these people in a very, very tight geographic area, all with their hands out, and they're all great causes.
Of course.
I mean, how do you prioritize the Florida Aquarium over the University of Tampa? They're both amazing, right? The Museum of Art's incredible. The hospital's incredible. So it's hard to think, but they're all being successful in their campaigns, not just with federal and state dollars, but private donors coming in and bringing money in to put their name on a building to give back to our community. And I think that just speaks volumes to the way the downtown is actually growing. And I'm sure your clients are seeing that too, because that's why they're coming here.
Yeah, and the thing is, you have to find new money, right? So you are successful, but how do you find new money? And that's what we're helping our clients do.
So, Aakash, can you give me a name of a person or maybe a business that you see thriving in Tampa Bay right now?
Oh, there's so many. I think from you mentioned earlier, Daryl Shaw, I think what he's doing, not just with Ybor, and I've gotten to know him because of the Hillsborough Community College. We have an Ybor campus, and he's pretty active in the Ybor chamber. He got a soccer team. He brought a women's soccer team. Mm-hmm. He's redeveloping a stadium at Blake High School. That's like, amazing. And all of this 750 acres, I believe, that he owns, it's just something he had the vision for years ago and is not doing it. To see someone do that, I talked to the owner of Midtown, the Brownlee companies. They had that land and sat on it for 12 years before they developed Midtown. So people that's a lot of patience, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of patience. And so Daryl's one that I think people are watching every day. In construction, I think we talked about it a little bit. You've got the YMCA. They're doing a whole big thing in East Tampa. Feeding Tampa Bay opened recently in that whole facility. So you've got these big projects that the community's taken on, and it's all because we have a need. We have a need to help the community and get bigger. So, we get to work with the Housing Authority. We talked about that before. That's an affordable housing section. It's a huge need for the community. They just broke ground at Rum Yards over there. So I would say, if one person, it would be like Daryl, because you mentioned him.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And it's amazing to see that these developers aren't just coming in to build the expensive high-rise that you pay $5,000 a month. They're also giving back to the other side of the community. They're saying, hey, we need this YMCA.
Right.
We need this affordable housing. We need feeding Tampa Bay. We need to feed these people.
The partnerships are incredible.
And I have never in my history seen the partnerships so intertwined as I do now. Did I see that each one of these business individuals coming in passionately feel about giving back in addition to just making money. They're not just they're not just some blind fund from New York coming in and buying and developing and selling and getting out. These are people who are actually putting their name to a project, and now they're putting their name to philanthropic efforts. And I think that's super impressive here for our community. And everyone, you can read about it, you can see it. They all know each other. They all work well with each other. Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal community involvement? Things like some of the things in your profile and some of the things I know you work on are like the Early Learning Coalition or the Future Leaders Friday Luncheon or Hillsborough Community College. We've talked about them extensively.
Yeah, so Early Learning Coalition. So it's a funny story. I was at an event in so I started the business in 2012. I was at an event in 2013. I met then Governor, now Senator Rick Scott, and I said, hey, I would like to, this was at a CEO Council luncheon. I was a guest of somebody's, and I said, hey, I would love to apply for one of your boards. And he said, done. Call my office, fill out an application and apply. So I said, no problem. So I applied for to be on the Expressway Authority. And I got a call from his office. This is, the governor's office, big deal, right? Mm-hmm. I was going to have a phone interview with his transportation secretary, which I had. And then he forwarded my name to the governor, and the governor wanted to interview. So during that process, in the interview, we chatted and we talked about different other opportunities there were. And he said, hey, I might have something for you, just stand by. So a few months go by, nothing. You just kind of wait in this process. It's a very interesting process. And then you get a call. I got a call from the governor's office. I got a call from my friend first who told me that they were going to give me a different opportunity. And the governor's office said, hey, the governor would like you to be the chair of the Early Learning Coalition. I was like, what's that? And I'm 30 years old at the time, right? And this is a little over a decade ago. And I said to the governor's person who called me, I said, well, the governor wants you to do this because you operate a business. Nonprofits are a business. This specific organization, the Early Learning Coalition of Hillsborough County, there's 30 coalitions in the state of Florida. Hillsborough just happens to be the whole county, but it's other, like Pasco they have multiple counties in their coalitions, like Pasco, Hernando, whatever. So I said, sure, I'll do whatever, if the opportunity to serve, I'm here to serve the state of Florida. So the chair and two other people are appointed by the governor. So I'm appointed by the governor. And we at that time had a budget of $72 million. And we had about 70 employees. And every year, our mission is to make sure that everyone gets a quality access to education. So we oversee what we call the provider centers or daycare centers. It's really provider is the right terminology. So if you have the age is 0 through 4, right? So if you have a center and you need to train your teachers, you need assistance on building a playground, you need assistance on better curriculum, we have those capabilities. And we're basically the state funds us. So we're a nonprofit that gets legislative funds and we're written in the state statute. Mm-hmm. So I've been the chair for 10 years. We now have a budget of $200 million and we have almost 210 employees. And we are the third largest coalition in the state of Florida. And I like the opportunity because we are serving the 150% of the poverty level of folks. And so now every day, one of the goals was to make sure that people who want to be sending their child to VPK, that's the program, it's called VPK, has a spot. So when I first started, we had a wait list of 6,000 people. Today we're at 0. So anyone who qualifies, right, if they have a child 0 through 4 wants a spot in VPK, they're eligible and they go through our facility. So we had our board retreat recently and we've got a great board of 24 members. Like I said, I'm termed out, but the governor hasn't replaced me yet. So it's, there are people that are applying and I told the current governor, I said, you tell me when, whenever you need me to step aside, I will. But we have a great CEO in Dr. Fred Hicks. And, every child, regardless of income level, should have the opportunity to get an education. And that's why when I interview with Governor DeSantis for this position for Hillsborough Community College, it's kind of full circle, right? We all should have early and then after high school. So we're like everything. So the only thing I don't work on is K through 12, but of course they're partners of ours. Mm-hmm. Partners of ours at the community college level and at the early learning, because our kids that we have at early learning are going to be the school district's kids.
Yeah, it's a feeder pattern. They have to benefit early. When you get children in the classroom super early, our son, my son went to a VPK program,
right?
But we actually put him in, it wasn't a daycare, it was an education center at the time he was 1 year old. And so by the time he was even 4 and 5, he was already excelling way above grade level in math. And you don't think that, math in kindergarten, you don't think that. Well, they're teaching basic algebra in like second grade now. They're starting to teach these functions, but his success was greatly attributed to early on programs and getting into early education. And that shouldn't have been because of financial means. We had the ability to put him into a private preschool before he went into the charter school system.
Right.
But if we get every kid the opportunity and the access, to that. Imagine what we could do in the next 20 years.
And the number that I read when I was applying for this board and when I got oriented in the organization is for every $1 we invest in a child early, we get $7 back in our community.
That's incredible.
What other bit? I mean, that's an investment everyone's going to do. Yeah. I mean,
sign me up. I have $1 right now.
So I'm glad you said that. So at the coalition, when I first got there, we rebranded, we reorganized, and now we're still looking for active board members to get involved. Of course, it's not a lot of commitment, but it's something that affects everybody. So if you know anyone and you're listening and you want to get involved, I'm happy to talk to you more about it.
That's incredible. I'm very passionate about education. If I wouldn't have had the charter school education, I grew up poor. Went to a poor elementary school. I went to a charter school, if not for my charter school education, which was free because my parents could never send me to a private school. If not for that charter school, I would not have had the skills and background that I did today. I got a lot of my education in the high school years versus the college years. And I did. I went to college. I did get my associates. I went a little further than that and then got into going into my career path. But just even walking into college, that background that I had before then, because I had a quality education, made a difference. Huge difference.
When I ran for county commission, so I got on this board in 2014 and then got more involved in the community in the county and then ran for county commission in 2017 and lost in 2018. But I met with a lot of the charter school communities. I'm a big charter school proponent because, again, it gives parents choices. Mm-hmm. You know, that is so important that your parents had, first of all, you got access and you had a choice. And I'm sure, was it close to you?
It was not. It was about 30 minutes away. It wasn't the closest school to me. There was probably 2 other schools closer to me.
Which were public schools.
Which were public schools. Yeah. And a charter school is a public school, but
so
you have the ability, it's different. You have the ability to regulate it a little better. And it can be regulated a little closer. And so instead of a school board that oversees a massive school district, like Hillsborough County School District is what, the 10th biggest in the country? Seventh now. Yeah. 7th biggest in the entire country. Most people don't realize that.
235,000 kids.
Yeah, but how is a school board of a handful of people, a dozen people, going to be able to help your middle school that you went to and help that student? Whereas the charter schools, and where I strongly believe is the right school boards, as long as they're regulated and maintained properly, they're only overlooking a couple schools, 2 or 3.
Right. The lotteries for these schools to get in now are so huge. Charter schools. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's insane. My son's charter school, I believe there was a wait list of 1,500 some people. My son's high school, which is a choice school, not a charter school, but it's a choice school, and it was 1,500 or 1,800 people wait list on that. And so the need is there to fulfill that. So thank you for working towards that and helping both before that K through 12 and after that K through 12 to well-round what they're getting in the middle there. So, hey, Aakash, tell us a little bit about the Future Leaders Friday Luncheon.
Yeah, so we kind of stopped it a few years ago because of the pandemic, but there was a group in town when I first moved here, and it was called Friday Roundtable, and they would have lunch at the University Club, and it would be very similar to what Bob Clark, I don't know if you know Bob Clark, but he does a lunch every Friday at the Columbia Restaurant. And the people got invited, and they were like high-level VIPs in this community, and the hosts were actually the now president of Real Law, president of USF. She was one of the hosts. And so I was like, man, that sounds like a cool group. I want to get invited. And what happened was I was working for a real estate developer, working in PR, and I was able to book my client to attend the luncheon. And I was 25 at the time, and I was like, I really want to I want to go to one of these lunches. And the people that organized it at the time were like, you know what, you're a little young, you need to get more involved in the community. I was like, okay, fine. But where do people go that aren't, that are my age to have these lunches? So I called 3 of my buddies. One was in real estate, one was in accounting, and one was in healthcare, and I'm in marketing. And I said, guys, why don't we start a group? And we do it the first Friday of every month. We're not leaders yet. We'll call ourselves the future leaders. And so we did it. We started it. I ended up having the mayor there, the commander at McDill at the time, and I think we had the police chief, but yeah, the police chief was Jane Castro. Yeah, we had her. We had the owner of the Bucks, and we had some heavy hitters that would come there because we would take a photo. So we would have lunch the first Friday of the month. We would do it at the same table at either Timpano or Season 52. We would take a picture and put it on social media. We would tag the people. We put it on our website of all of our guests. And then once a year, we would host a reception, and we would have everybody show up. We would get it sponsored by different people that were in attendance. And we ended up changing our name to Leaders Friday Luncheon because everyone there was like, you're not future, you are the leaders. And so the purpose of it was just obviously to network more effectively and introduce people in the community. And it worked because, obviously the 3 or 4 of us are all, we still talk to people today. In fact, the now mayor, we talk about, like, we started something that young professionals weren't doing, because at the time, young professionals didn't have an outlet. There was emerging leaders of Tampa Bay at the Tampa Bay Chamber. There was like Tampa Connection Leadership Program, which is a great program, which I did as well. But there wasn't a lot of places for young professionals to network. So it kind of created something. And I just copied something that other people were doing. I didn't create it, but it was funny because if it wasn't for me seeing and knowing that group, the other group, I wouldn't have started it.
That's incredible. And you weren't welcome at an event. Like, and I've experienced this too. So being young and a professional, and I've had that same comment. Oh, wait a few years. And I have no problem with waiting for my experience. And now we're not as young as we were back then, and we're on the other side of that line. But you created something you saw a need for. So instead of trying to go to somebody else's table that didn't want you at the time, you said, you know what? I literally am going to create my own table. And it probably started small, and it built up, and it built up, and it built up. And like you said, you still keep in contact with that.
And the full circle moment is some of the hosts of the big table called us and asked if they could be invited to our group.
Isn't that incredible?
And of course we said yes, because we're welcoming.
Yeah, you want to be open. I think our generation is like that. We want to create that welcome and opening environment. We don't want to have that exclusionary feeling that some of other generations had created. And I think that's been corrected. I think most of the networking groups now are a lot more welcoming. But I love seeing the young professional groups for people that might be nervous at the bigger groups, that might be nervous about meeting those bigger names, that need a little bit more experience. So kudos to you for seeing that need super early on. Even if you did copy from somebody else, you still started.
I think you just started. I think you should start the Building Success Corner Luncheon at the Tampa Club.
Well, you might do that.
All right.
Do you know anybody there?
Can I be a guest?
Who do I call? Who do I call for reservations?
I'll talk to you. I got a guy.
You got a guy? All right. And absolutely, of course you can be a guest.
Sweet.
So Aakash, could you share a memorable moment or achievement from your time since you started Elevate Inc.? It's been a little bit now. It's not a new business anymore.
Yeah, so I mentioned that emerging leaders group, and this goes back to our kind of, perseverance, people will be brave of you, determination kind of conversation. I was the finalist for their Leader of the Year award 4 times and then won it on the 5th time.
Okay.
And I don't know if you know, but there was a former Tampa Bay Rays manager named Joe Madden who went on to the Chicago Cubs and was a manager and won the World Series. He had won it. He went to the World Series for 1 year, and then he won it a second year. And he's a part owner of a restaurant here called Ava, and so he's partners with one of my mentors. So the 4th time I was a finalist, I was like, this is my year, right? This is my year. I'm going to win this. Like I bought like 5 tables. I got all my family there, my friends, right? And I had Joe Madden, the coach of the Chicago Cubs, like at my table, and I didn't win. And so it was like, oh man. And I remember this. The coach man leaned over to me and goes, it's okay, Aakash. I didn't win the World Series either the first time. And so it just shows me that, so the next year I won the whole award. And it's for one leader in the organization. And there's like 700 people that are eligible, right? And when I won, I was like, this is, that's when I was running for election. Mm-hmm. And I could have easily not nominated. I could have turned down the nomination, but that was kind of one award. I mean, there's a lot of different experiences I've had the privilege of winning, but that was one in 2017 that I will never forget because it's so competitive. And then, when you're finals a few times, you're like, sometimes people just give up.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up that. I mean, you can't help but feel like a failure at some point. You didn't do anything wrong. There's a lot of other good people that we're going up for it against. And I talk about this a lot in my book. Don't get discouraged by failure. Learn from it. Yeah. And push harder. And you've demonstrated this in the interview over and over again. People don't really tell you no. And if they do, you're like, okay, I'll be back next year. and that's great. Keep fighting. And even entrepreneurs that I met with a couple of restaurant owners today. And when you're an entrepreneur, you have to have that. And you're an entrepreneur, you have to have that pain to keep going. Yeah. I think every good superhero has its tragedy before they become a superhero. It makes them who they are. It makes them who they are. It defines them. And when you have that pain, when you have that failure, then you know the taste of victory so much better. It's so much sweeter. If you're just giving it, then what's the point? I mean, I don't know about you. Other than a lot of money, I don't want people just to give me something. I want to work for it and know that I earned it. I want to feel that sense of pride and passion over it. Yeah, and at the Tampa Club, of course, there's a lot of other clubs in downtown Tampa.
And I get friends and people call me like, well, do I really need to go downtown? Do I want to pay that money? I'm like, look, for me, it's the right time. And I got involved. And of course, we both got involved. And now, we kind of resurrected that Ascending Leaders group. And it's in good hands as long as when you leave something. So whenever I leave the Early Learning Coalition, whenever I leave the Tampa Club presidency at the end of the year, it's in better spot than I feel like it make a difference.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And let the next generation take a look and sit back and watch, and then move on to the next thing. Use your experience that you just made at the Tampa Club, at the Ascending Leaders, at many other things that you've done, and take that to the next organization that maybe doesn't have that perspective. So that's incredible. So as we kind of wind down our show, I like to have a little segment called Ratchet It Up. And it's just a little bit of funny. And you're a funny guy, so not putting you on the spot or anything. But tell me a crazy story that you've heard in your industry, or maybe just a funny joke.
Oh, man. Funny joke. Well, I was, when I was talking about being direct, there was something that people get their most wisdom from dogs and kids. Because they're always going to be direct, right? And and dogs, you can't really fight back with them, and you got to love them. And same with kids. And so I think that kind of gets me the whole model is like, that's you kind of need like a little kid like in your life. And so sometimes you have to have a friend who's got to be a little kid who's going to be that little, the immature one, the clown, right? I think sometimes you're like, which is good. You have friends like that, and so. I think I don't know if it's funny, but for me, it's really funny because it's like, you can kick a dog and they'll still love you. And that's what you need. You need people like that in your life. And that's a real challenge in the business community. It's like sometimes it's like, just go to dinner and just not talk work. Enjoy it.
Just enjoy life and enjoy making new friends. And I do that quite frequently. I'll set a meeting. They're friends. We'll mean to talk business, and then we'll be like, "Oh crap!"
Yes,
we just spent 3 hours together, and we forgot to talk about the one thing we said we were going to talk about.
Well, it's because you had wine in that night.
Absolutely. Well, Aakash, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a privilege to get to hear about your experience and interaction with the community, and for you really highlighting the community and calling out so many wonderful people that are doing things here. So thank you for that.
Of course, and if you want to get more involved in the Tampa Club or the Early Learning Coalition, let me know.
Absolutely. Thanks for a job well done, Aakash. Thank you so much for joining us at Tommy's Toolbox, the podcast. If you have any questions about my company, Tomco Solutions, the construction industry or real estate investing in Tampa, please be in touch or visit tomcosolutions.com. You can also learn a little bit more about me personally at tommywhitehead.com. My contact information is in the episode description, and I'll put Aakash's there as well. We would love to hear from you. Until next time, thank you again. I look forward to seeing you at the construction site for the next episode of Tommy's Toolbox, the podcast. Have a great day, everyone. Hi, everybody. Tommy Whitehead here. Have you heard about my book, Building Success, A Toolbox to Coming Out on Top? It's already been on the Amazon best-selling list. So scan that QR code on your screen or go to Amazon or any major retailer to get your copy today. I can't wait to hear what you think. So leave a comment below or leave a review with your thoughts.